Hi everyone, thank you all for coming. I would just like to take this opportunity to open with a karakia. If you know it, feel free to join in. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā tara tara ki tai. E hi aki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei moriora. And I'll pass you over to Carl, our moderator.
Awesome. All right, guys, thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited about this panel and the kind of conversations and topics that we're going to be navigating today. I am not an expert in the space. I am an ally, and I am learning what that means. And I think, like a lot of people, there's a lot of questions that we have, and I'm hoping some of those questions get answered. And I'll do my best to help move around the conversation as well. We are taking questions, and we will have a Q&A at the end. The best way is through the EVNT NZGDC app. So if you find the Transcendent panel, you can ask questions there, and then we can go through them at the end. I think, yeah, or as they come through, we'll check them as well. And yeah, we had a hashtag, but I think we won't worry about it today. The EVNT app is the place to go ask your questions. So I think, as like an introduction, I think it would be great to go around all the panelists and to just give an introduction as to who you are, what your background is, what your pronouns are, and we'll start with Jade. So, hey Jade, thanks for joining us.
G'day. So I'm Samara Jade Sendek. I'm a narrative designer and QA tech from NARM. I would also like to take a minute to acknowledge that I am currently live streaming from the lands of the Bunwurrung and Woiwurrung peoples, and I would like to pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Pronouns are she, her, and I'm very openly queer.
Awesome, thanks. And over to you, Patty.
Hi, I'm Patty, and I am a game designer with Studio Beans in Toronto, Canada. We are real and exist. It's not a scam. And yeah, I'm trans, assigned male at birth. I go by pronouns she, her, and they, them. But yeah, and I'm also very tired.
Cool, and Liliana.
Hi, as you should know by now, I'm Liliana Ravenwood. I'm a programmer at PicPoc. I use she, her pronouns, and I've been out for 6 months as of yesterday.
Awesome. I think there's kind of two sides to this conversation. I think one is talking about how you guys feel in general about your journey, and then I think there's another element of outsiders and educating the general population. So I think I'd like to start with some more personal topics. So maybe if we can go around and talk a bit about what it was like coming out as trans and what that process was like, or anything that you guys are comfortable sharing. I think that could be really valuable. So yeah, we can start with you, Jade, if you like.
Oh, goody. So what it was like coming out for me was I was in rural Victoria. So all the problems with the bogans and none of the hilarity. So I was distinctly keen to get out of the country, get to the city as fast as possible. My experience coming out has mostly been in an online space, mostly with roleplay groups and other artists. It's mostly been very independent, solipsistic in a way, mostly because I'm just I live as a hermit, and it's the best way for me to live, so I was largely on my own.
Awesome. Yeah, I think there's some good topics about the online communities and how they have reacted compared to physical communities. Maybe we can touch on that a bit later. Patty.
So I've been struggling with my gender since high school. Kind of spent a good few years suppressing it. That was a terrible time. The year I finally just sort of decided to come out was 2017. I had a somewhat stable job at the time. And I was sort of planning to come out towards the end of the year, was feeling confident, good about it. And then the week after I came out to my mother, I was fired from my job. So my life kind of fell apart in a lot of different ways right afterwards, which was not a great thing for my mental health, considering you have to go through some real bullshit to even start HRT in New Zealand. So, like, I'm not knocking going to counselling. It's a good time, highly recommend it, but it really set me back about a good year and a half, just because of that just traumatic experience of just doing something that was very, very hard, and then the week after immediately getting shit canned by my former employer. So yeah, I wouldn't have recommend the way I did it. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of want to ask just like one follow-up question from that. What do you think is the main reason that kind of reaction happened? And is there any kind of learning points that you learned from that experience? Like one quick one?
I mean, it's really hard to talk about without really talking shit. I really want to, and to be honest, I've burnt enough bridges in New Zealand anyway that it's probably fine. But to be fair, like, they didn't know what was going on in my life at the time. So when they were making the decision to let me go, they didn't really know that. But the space that I was working in, where I was working, who I was working with, wasn't really that sort of open and like it wasn't. I was never really comfortable to be myself in that space, so I could never really talk to my leads or the studio owner about any of this stuff because we were roughly. I was at A44. Just say that. Like we were like during the time we were working on Ashen, we were super large, like about 40-ish people. So everyone was kind of really close and the office was really small, so we could all kind of talk to each other, but the space never felt like we could actually talk about sort of things that were affecting us. So they didn't know what I was going through at the time in the lead up to me coming out to my parents. But yeah, like they could have definitely made a space that made me feel more comfortable with actually just like talking about more personal things that were affecting my work. Like the anxiety leading up to me coming out was pretty rough and nerving, like causing me to just not be particularly efficient at my job. So like that was one of the reasons why they kind of justified letting me go. But yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Liliana, any feelings about when you came out?
Yeah, I can certainly echo the importance of that online community. I said that I came out 6 months ago, but I knew I was trans, or at the very least gender fluid, since like March last year, which is a time of a lot of change for people. But in parts, it took a very long time to process that and come to terms with it. A large part of that was just not even understanding what it meant to be trans. And if I hadn't had that opportunity to connect with people, largely on Discord, the Transgender, I never would have been able to see myself in these other women. That was essential, and that's kind of why I think having this opportunity is so important, because a lot of people just don't understand, even people who are trans. It was a lot. It took me about 7 months from asking, hey, I would like some hormones, please, to actually getting them. And even when I finally had them in my hand, there was a moment of, ooh, maybe I should just keep this to myself a little bit longer. Avoid that like moment of... My biggest anxiety was that if I didn't look a certain way when I made this huge announcement, is honestly that people wouldn't buy it. They'd be like, oh, you say this, and obviously in a face-to-face situation, I would never imagine anyone that I knew personally, even as an acquaintance, dismissing that. But when you see how people treat trans people, you can't shake that lingering anxiety of, oh, what if this person who I don't know that well is going to have those thoughts about me? So it's a lot to process. In general, my experience after coming out has actually been very good overall. I've had a lot of support. I have some amazing friends, only a few of which knew before I made that big announcement at work and on Facebook and all of that. But I'd struggle to think of a more stressful thing to go through.
Totally. One thing that you touched on was how your perspective changed after, like, of the trans industry. And one question I'd like to ask the panel is, what was one expectation of being trans that changed once you actually made the leap and committed to it? Jade, do you have any answer to that?
Yeah. So about that thing with, like, you know, oh, we got to present a certain way, we got to do certain things. There's, like, you know, you got to like Timber. With regards to, like, you know, the right way of being trans, yeah, no, there's 100% not the right way to do it. It's probably about the only wrong way to do it is, like, have this colossal expectation that there is a right and a wrong. There isn't. So just as a little thought experiment for everyone in the room, describe your gender in 3 words, but you can't use, like, male, female, or agender, right? So mine would be honey, gunsmoke, whiskey. That's how I would describe, you know, my gender presentation. I just use she, her pronouns.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's a really good thought exercise. And yeah, that's definitely something I want to put more thought into. Is there anything else in terms of how your guys' perspective changed before and after that you think would be valuable to share?
I mean, I kind of just live on the spectrum of wearing whatever the fuck I want. Before transitioning, I kind of had this sort of, not ingrained notion, but it's just like, I feel like everyone was expecting me to be incredibly feminine afterwards. And, like, yeah, nah, that's not really what I like to do. Like, I like being hyper-femme some days, but other days I want to just wear a fucking t-shirt and a pair of really baggy cargo pants and just sort of walk around like a gremlin. So,
Same.
like, being able to do that and just initially not feeling like I could do that because I needed to present a certain way so people just fucking knew that I wasn't a fucking boy. Which, I'm sorry if I'm swearing a lot, but it's a very rough time to go through. So, like, it's slowly going through counseling in general just sort of helped me get over that and start accepting that I can just wear whatever I want, and that's fine and okay. And it's really good because that means, like, today I'm wearing this sparkly bee dress. Tomorrow I'm going to be wearing a t-shirt, some cargo pants, and I'm going to look like I have not slept. So take this all in, and this is the most presentable you see me this week. So
yeah, no, that's really interesting, and I kind of see some similarities in those feelings to, like, women having that pressure to, you know, dress a certain way, and, like, my wife, for example, like, the kind of pressures that she might feel from society, and I kind of feel that same way, whereas I feel like men are a lot more, like, can be, I don't know, like, lazier, and they can kind of, like, get away with it. There's, like, this less expectation. But that expectation gets placed on men as well, like, but in the opposite. Like, when they do try to look really nice and really, like, are presentable, they get, like, you know, the toxic masculinity shit. Like, trans men go through the same thing. Like, if they want to still present femme sometimes, and some of them do, like, they then get perceived less than their desired gender. So it's a very, like, it's just a general, like, shit street either way, because no matter what you do, someone's gonna suck. And it's really just down to, like, you personally to just sort of accept that people are gonna be shitty and not get over it, but, like, just do what you want to do, and if it makes them mad or makes them feel like they need to bully you, just not care about it. Yeah. Totally. I think it is everyone goes through a self-awareness, like, self-discovery journey. And I definitely, I think that point echoes well, that there's always going to be someone that sucks, not to take any other person's opinion seriously. Be yourself. Liliana, is there anything from how you felt, a year ago to how you feel now that really changed your perspective of what it was like being trans?
Yeah, in part, I think it's because I did have such a very warm reception, both in my personal and professional life, but it turns out a lot of people don't really care. It's like, oh, cool, you're a woman now. All right. So what are we doing today? I kind of always knew from knowing a lot of trans women in tech that the industry itself does have a space for us. It might be predominantly cishet white male by proportion, but I would still call it, in general, an inclusive sector to work in. But that doesn't stop it from being terrifying.
Yeah. Is there anything else to add, Patty?
Oh yeah, it's never not going to be terrifying. I don't think until literally we stop assigning people genders at birth, I don't think it's ever going to stop being terrifying for anyone to come out, which sucks because it's not an experience I wish that anyone else would go through, because it's just rough.
It was worth it, though.
Yeah, definitely. It's worth it in the long run. But I would like to not spend upwards of $2,000 to $3,000 on counseling.
Totally. And just the mental toll of all that sounds like a lot to deal with. One topic that I would love to touch on is transphobia. And if there's any stories that you guys have that you'd like to share that just might help people's perspective grow. Jay, do you have something?
I got stories for you.
Okay, let's pick one story.
Basically, my entire experience on Twitch has been one disastrous stories of transphobia after another. God, it's hard to winnow out just one, but there's always an emerging pattern of just anonymous faces that that just seem to come out of the woodwork whenever there's a trans person visible anywhere. There was a time where I used to moderate for at least 15, maybe 16 trans spaces, and the amount of times it was just the same vulgar attacks on different people. It was just we can't be visible. If every time we're being visible, we're basically being, shot at, really.
Yeah, no, that's, online spaces, Twitch communities, they're toxic in general, and I can definitely, sympathize with how, mean and vicious it can get there. Do you guys have any stories that you'd like to share?
No, not really. I've been weirdly fortunate to not really experience any transphobia directly aimed towards me. I don't think that's the norm and for most people though, so it's a bit weird. But I see it on the internet, and I just see it just around sort of different aspects of games specifically. Currently, not currently, but before I was at Beans, I was working on a title called Mortal Shell, and we were about to announce that the game was going to go Epic Game Store exclusive, which has a whole mess of baggage attached around that one particular game store. So around that time, I was told about this beforehand, so I had some time to prepare. So at that point, I basically nuked as much sort of trans-identifying information from my Twitter account as best as I could. I just removed any mention of Mortal Shell on my bio or anything, just as much as I could to make sure that I avoided a lot of the potential nastiness that would come from the announcement. That was arguably really good and helped me keep my job for longer. So there's stuff like that, and I'm like the current place that I'm working at, we're at some point getting some sort of training on online harassment just in case, because we are working with Evolver Digital and have a very specific community, and knowing that my current employer is taking steps and our publisher is taking steps to make sure that our entire team is safe and feel safe online is really, really nice and heartwarming. So it's like, I've never experienced that transphobia directly because I've always sort of taken steps to shelter myself, which sucks. But yeah.
Yeah, well, Liliana, anything?
Yeah, just a couple of things I could probably touch on. Sort of flowing on from that, one of the reasons why I'm so very thankful for this opportunity to have this platform is I think it's essential that when it comes to trans issues, trans people actually get a chance to speak. I'm sure many of you will have noticed certain other groups in the country getting very up in arms about us, and maybe we're the ones who should be consulted on those issues because it directly relates to us, maybe, just my opinion. So that's why having this opportunity to actually speak and be heard amongst all of that is so very, I'm so very grateful to be here. Yeah, I do experience like, not transphobia in a targeted way, but I experience plenty of incidental transphobia. People still misgender me, even when one of the reasons why I put so much effort to present in a certain way is just so that they pick up on it. And in general, I found people in Wellington to be quite good at that. I don't care if they read me as a trans woman, so long as they don't read me as a man. But you know, sometimes people at work, they knew me for a year as one person, and now I'm going by something completely different. Some people have no trouble. Some people slip up and don't even realize, and then if I mention it, they're like, oh, shit, sorry, and they're usually pretty good from there. So I'm by no means the first trans person to be at PICPOC, but I'm pretty sure I'm the first person to transition at PICPOC. And it's been a learning experience for me, obviously, and also, I imagine, for the company. And how could they be prepared for that if we don't have the space to speak? So like one example is that after I came out, it was a close friend of mine who added me to the women's chat group. I only realized the other day that, oh, I'm not actually on the women's mailing list. And that's almost certainly just oversight, because everyone at work has been incredibly lovely and inclusive. But it's the sort of thing that you notice as an individual. So yeah, it's normally small things, but small things add up, I guess.
Yeah, it's right on the same topic as a question that came in from someone in the audience. They said, for any managers in the audience, how can they work to better support our transgender whānau in the office? Patty, you talked about that a little bit as well. I'm sure you guys have a lot of, I keep saying you guys, and by the way, that's something I'm trying to get rid of in my vocabulary, so I apologize if I say that.
Yeah, I wanted to say something about that, but then
I'm so sorry.
No, I'm probably going to be belligerent enough. I don't need to give you any more ammunition.
That actually raises an important point that I forgot to mention before, is that trans people are not a monolith. So like, I didn't even notice. I don't mind being included in a group collectively by you guys, but some people really do. And it's just as valid to, I think, to kind of flow onto that question, is to actually engage with that individual and ask and check in with them. One of the most important things, I'm taking over now.
This is your show.
The first person at PICPOC to ask me for my pronouns was my technical manager. I was still very much presenting masculine, and I kind of said, he, him, for now. And that shortly after turned into they, them, and yeah, and so on. But having him take that initiative, and like, I don't think he had any indication that I was trans at the time, but he thought, well, I should do this, I should be considerate. And little things like that, little acts of allyship, really, like, I will never forget that.
Yeah, awesome. Patty?
Yeah, like just going on from that, like I don't care most of the time. Like call me dude, call me bro, call me brew, whatever, that's fine. Like if we're friends, that's absolutely okay. If we're casual acquaintances, depends on the mood that I'm in. Usually I just like there's a reason I still use they them as pronouns, just because I don't want to start any shit. Like if people just use they them in front of me, that's fine. That, as long as they've got like at least one of the four, they can like can't really get too fucking wrong, which is great. But most people are pretty good about it. Like all my coworkers are like she, her, yeah, that's fine. And like that was clear from the start. Everyone was very on board with it. It was great. We're just a very welcoming bunch of people, which is fucking lovely and great. So it was really useful, especially because we're always just on group calls, and half of us are like end of day falling asleep, and I'm wide awake at 8 o'clock in the morning. So like if they make a slip up, I'm not too mad at it, but there's very little chance of them doing that because I kind of set those boundaries. But yeah, that's all I had to say there.
Jade, was there anything you wanted to say earlier?
With regards to this, like, I'm very about it. One of the fastest ways to get onto my skin is, like, say,
But trans woman, dude is gender neutral.
no, it isn't. It's like, it is still a loaded term. Like, mate, it's like, even that can rub some other trans women the wrong way. I personally don't have a gripe with mate, but that's specifically because of my country upbringing, where like the high school valley girl types would also say, "Oh yeah, I'm just hanging with me mates," and they'd be off having a girl day. So upbringing kind of does have a small factor to it. There's also both Liana and Patty did touch on it as well. It's like, check in with your individual in question, because sometimes it'll be like in Patty's case, completely fine with one word or another. But if anyone called me dude or bro, it's just like, you're gonna get a very stern death glare, and it's like, you want to try that again, mate?
Yeah, Liliana, you had something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, not specifically following on to that, but before I forget, speaking more generally, obviously when you're transitioning, there is a considerable cognitive load to process. It's a huge social change to make, filled with anxiety. But also, if you start a medical transition, you're getting puberty again. Also, a lot of trans people, there's a high correlation between being trans and having some form of neurodivergency. And all of this comes together at a very complicated time with lots of appointments and counseling. And I'm lucky that the laser hair removal clinic is right across the road, so I can just go there at lunchtime. But there are so many extra things that a cis person probably, there are some things they would probably worry about, but if you want to help support someone in their transition at work, I would suggest let them know that if they have an important appointment to make, that, we can negotiate around you having the time to do that.
Yeah, it's real important for trans people, because appointments for things are usually, especially in the public sector, is very backed up in terms of getting an appointment to go see a gender-specific specialist, or going to see a counselor, or going to laser hair removal, or that kind of stuff. I was, one of the lucky things about being let go was that means I had a lot of free time. So I didn't really go through these sort of painful processes of I need to book appointments at specific times to make sure I'm not missing work. And to be honest, when I was working at A44, I definitely would not have been given the space or the time to actually make those appointments. Partially because the studio was located in Avalon, which is a while away from most places, and we had a start time of 8 o'clock in the morning, and I was already doing crazy waking up stuff, which sucked. So, I think it's a the thing that I have now that I'm really thankful for is that we have unlimited paid time off, which is great. It means that I can just, take a sick day if I need to or whatever, or take a day off to come to this. But that means, like, if I do have, I probably will have a bunch of appointments because I am eventually going to move to Canada, that I will need to take that time to go find doctors, go to whatever hospitals and stuff like that. So, like, they've taken considerations already. Like, that's not necessarily a trans-specific one. It was kind of like a benefit they could offer everyone at the studio. It just turns out that that benefit is really useful to people, like even people who who are not trans and just need lots of medical appointments and stuff. Getting that flexibility is great. So.
Totally, it's a great catch-all for, you don't need to know every specific detail, but managers can definitely take advice from that.
Yeah, and they're all very open and very understanding of when we talk to them about certain things. So it just makes it it makes it a really friendly space to be able to be honest and stuff with them, which is again not what I had at A44, which is unfortunate because would have solved a lot of issues. Unfortunately, that didn't occur. So yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, but
yeah. Well, another interesting question came in that I think you could provide some value on. What resources, online or otherwise, have you found useful for learning about trans issues?
Nothing.
There has to be something.
9 times out of 10, the stuff that I found is all kind of crap and really outdated. Like, it's like websites that look like they were built in like the early late 90s, early 2000s. They have like this real horrible color. Like, they're not great. They're not useful for like modern stuff. Reddit can be okay, depending on the subreddits you go to. No, I wouldn't say all the advice is great, but it definitely can help. My experience kind of sucks in that way.
To follow on from that really quickly, if you're a trans person, out on otherwise, or you just resonate with some of the things that we're talking about, if that's the case, please come see me. I would love to talk to you. Discord is great. There are so many great trans Discord communities. Is that useful for a manager? No. Ask, two trans people, how should I transition, or something like that, and you'll get 4 answers, because we will argue with ourselves about that stuff as well.
Really doesn't help that there's no good medical science on transitioning, so good luck.
Yeah, it's complicated. I definitely, if I was going to say anything, I would look into something like Rainbow Tech, Gender Minorities Aotearoa, probably good places to start. Yeah.
Jade, any resources that you've gone to? Twitch chat.
No. So it's very much a case-by-case basis. So what's right for one person is almost invariably going to be wrong for someone else. I would say it's if you were in my neck of the woods, head to Pronto/Equinox around Fitzroy Collingwood Way, talk to a gender doctor there, and you'll be off on informed consent with your pills within 4 to 6 weeks. In terms of if you asked me what my ideal dose is, how I get euphoria in the morning, how I manage my serotonin, and how to beat off the trolls with a Blue 82 Daisy Cutter, that would be, I take 2 patches through the week, and one of them is a supplementary dose. Now, in saying that, there are some people who are allergic to those patches. There are some people whose livers are completely fucked, so they can't take pills. There are some people whose they can't take really anything outside of direct injections, and there are very few people who would actually prescribe that. So it's one of these things you have to wrestle with as well, with the information you've got. And it certainly doesn't help that a lot of the medical science as the live crew mentioned, it's actually written by cis people for cis people. And we know this because, we know this now because through Reddit, we actually happen to know that a doctor accidentally transed himself looking for the Fountain of Youth. And we do know that a lot of this is now actually chemically related, not just, trans people are very different. It's, yeah.
Yeah,
it's a mess.
There's so many topics that I think we could talk about, and I'm just going through the questions so that it can be as valuable for the audience as possible. One thing that came in was, hi, just wondering if anyone has gone through the process of changing their legal name and if they have any advice around managing that.
No, it's going to cost me way too much money. And I am low-key annoyed that I didn't do it sooner, because now I have to use my dead name while I'm applying for visas for Canada. So just don't do what I did. Do it as soon as possible. But I understand that it's really hard to decide a name, and I don't even know if I still want to be called Patty. So I'm just going to suffer, and that's my choice.
Liliana, do you have any experience?
I did go and change my name. I actually went by Liliana again since about March in private circles because I really like Liliana Vess, and I thought, oh, I'll try this as a Discord name, and then it kind of stuck. But I did go and change my name recently. Thankfully, in New Zealand, it's not that difficult. You just have to go see a JP, sign some documents, go to the Department of Internal Affairs, pay about $200, and then your name too can be 98 characters long, because I have 11 middle names, and that was a short list down from 30.
Truly playing into the stereotype there.
That is a whole different panel that I don't think we've got time for.
None of them are Luna, though.
Jay, do you have any experience from changing your name?
Oh, fuck. Yeah, this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, is any information I could give you is a moot point out of Victoria, and they've recently changed their everything. So it used to be you had to get GRS for those, sometimes it's called gender affirming surgery, sometimes it's called sexual reassignment surgery. It depends on where you hear it from. You had to get that, then you had to get 2 doctors to sign off on the name change, then you had to hand in your birth certificate plus pay fees on top of that, wait 2 to 4 weeks, hope it didn't get lost in the mail, take it, and then spend another few hundred on top of that, changing your passport, your driver's license, and any other legal documentation. Thankfully, it's now easier. Right now, it's just you need a statutory declaration from someone who's known you for a year, statutory declaration from your GP, then you pay about $150, hand your paperwork in, and then you get you update all your legal documents. For passports, luckily, they actually cover this in Victoria. If you have a legal change of name, not just for trans issues, but also for if you've had a marriage, if you just want to change your name, by the way, you can do that. So if you don't like your name, you can change it. It's fine, cis people. I did it. You get your passport back on gratis. So you just have to update it whenever the old expiration date was. And it is significantly cheaper than it was before May 1st, 2020.
Yeah, I think a common thread is that it's constantly evolving, and it's laws are changing all around the world.
Well, funny you should mention that. So obviously changing your name here is quite easy. If you want to change your gender marker, it's a little different. I've done that for my driver's license. That was easy. It was expiring in June. I made a statutory declaration, got that verified by JP as you do, and VTNZ just took it and processed it. If If you want to do it for your passport, there's a bit more paperwork, but the same process. If you want to do it on your birth certificate, it's a lot more involved. You need to have it signed off by a doctor, basically saying that you've undergone some irreversible medical change. You then need to take that to a family court. You need to get a judge to make a declaration and order birth, deaths, and marriages to change your certificate for you. So that's why I would really like it if I didn't have to go through all of that, if I could just make the statutory declaration like I did already to change it for a different form of legal identification, because that would be really, really nice. There's no reason why I should have to go through all of that. Do you think that I just did this for fun? No.
Yeah, this is just for a lark. It was like, one day. I was like, oh, yeah, let's just do that. Let's take some pills and get some boobs. It's fine.
Just before anyone else does it, I should note that the ANZ area is actually very progressive. There are some sections of the US where you basically do all of that, dance the hokey pokey, then you've got to have your name stuck in a, take the worst of what we've said, add a few extra steps on it, then have your name printed, your dead name printed in the local newspaper for 4 weeks, and then you're allowed to change it. And then there's usually a couple of other steps that some people don't talk about. So just keep in mind that
It could be worse.
it could be so much better too.
Yeah,
No,
it
definitely.
can always be worse, but we need it to be better.
Yeah.
We need to hope that government gets its shit together and actually starts taking us seriously, because it absolutely sucks and puts way too much stress on us as individuals to do all these processes and potentially be rejected. It doesn't happen often, but one of the parts of the New Zealand process is that a judge has to say yes. And maybe the judge has a bad day, who knows, and he says no, or she says no, and it sucks for you. So yeah.
Yeah. We only have time for a few more questions before the panel's over. One question that I think would be valuable to a lot of the attendees at NZGDC is, what is your advice for colleagues in a workplace for how you'd like to be, I don't know, treated, or anything that could help with your day-to-day?
We like comments that are very flattering. And I say that partially as a joke, but I also mean it in a way that I got a lot of really shitty comments while I was at A44, just when I would do things like shave my facial hair. I wouldn't be criticized by it, but my lead would complain about why did you do this? And I'm like, well, and I didn't really have an answer because I wasn't really ready to come out yet, even though the weird thing is people already knew that I like to cross-dress at the time. It's a wild and complicated back and forth, doesn't matter. But the problem is that comments like that and just small remarks that don't necessarily seem like they would hurt can actually be really damaging. And that's again why I had this sort of there was this era of feeling uncomfortable about being myself in the workplace. Another one of those ones that you think is actually you would think would be oh yeah, this is a great thing to say to people, and saying yeah, I don't care how you come to work. Don't say that. That sucks. That means you don't care that's like you're saying you don't care about me as one of your employees. You don't care about that, or it's we're a welcome and accepting place, and saying shit like that does not actually engender that to me in particular ways. As you say, do you want to come to work dressed up in a dress? That is fine. That is the better way of saying it. Don't say, I don't care how you come to work, because that sucks. And it doesn't even matter if you're drunk or not, still don't say it. But yeah.
Yeah. Any advice from either of you two on colleagues and kind of team members?
Kind of building on that, say something nice. I'm gonna go one step further and say respect bodily autonomy. How about I just step back, stand up, this is basically what I wear on a day-to-day basis. Like, yeah, like as Patty says, it's like, you know, I would like it if someone complimented my hair. I would like it if someone complimented my makeup. But at the same token, it's like that needs to come with that comes with a certain oath of responsibility. Just like if someone turns up in a polka dot dress and like that's what they want to wear, then it's like, well, respect that, because they're actually, you know, they're digging deep to try and present something to the world that is characteristically them. And by, you know, having a little, gee, nice dress, or, you know, or, how you doing, Spot? That's that little needle. Usually, it's like that little needle kind of just signals to someone, it's like, you can't be trusted. Because you've fundamentally violated who they are as a person, really. Like, it's commonly in schoolyard bullying as well. So it's like just that little needle. Like, it's so profoundly hurtful that, like, you know, someone just may not, you know, they just might, you know, it makes the workplace harder. In the most cynical view possible, it just makes the workplace harder by doing something like that. And in the most positive way, it's like, well, you're kind of like, you're putting your friendship on the line just to get a cheap shot in, which is not cool.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Thank you. Is there anything you wanted to add, Linda?
Very, very briefly, yeah, as trans people, we are hyper aware and very like skittish of how people are perceiving us. So I can definitely feel that. One of the best things that a colleague did for me is just make even the smallest effort to make me feel included as a woman. The first time I was using the women's restroom to do my hair, because I hate my hair, and she was just there doing her makeup, and we chatted, and I have never felt so validated in my life. That was amazing. I'll never forget that. So just the smallest effort to make us feel included, to show that you actually care to see us as we want the world to see us, that will never be forgotten.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the community is really important, and finding those people around you, and like when you were saying you found the Discord channels to kind of go and ask questions, see other people in that space. I think a good way to end this panel is to just find out where people can follow you, just to follow your journey, and to maybe be influenced by some of the community that you're part of. So if we can go one by one, just to close off the panel, and where people can kind of find you and follow you if they want to hear more. Yeah, all right, so starting with you, Jade.
Right. If you see Jaded Cynic, JADED SYNIC, that's a pretty safe bet that that's me. I generally speaking keep my DMs open, though it's also on gratis. I reserve the right to mute and block if I don't feel safe. But otherwise, it's like if I can't help you, or I don't feel I can help you, generally speaking, I'll try and punt you over to someone who can, or someone better equipped to do it. Yeah, it's like if you got a question, hit me up in DMs. I am more than happy to try and help you if I can.
Thanks, Jade. And Patty?
Yeah, you can basically find me at one place, basically. I've just got the same username for almost everything at this point, but you can find me at PattyCubed on Twitter, Instagram, most social media platforms. And I generally try to keep myself pretty open and out there, just because it's one of those things that I was really appreciated about like other trans people, was like they were very open and out with themselves. So I was like, I'm going to keep doing this because it just means that we become more and more ingrained in the community, and it's normalized is a good word to use, I guess. But yeah, I'm usually down. I don't think I have my DMs open, but you can just like tweet me, and then I'll say like, hey, yeah, and I can try my best to help you. Can't guarantee anything, but you know, I'll try.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, you can easily find me on Twitter. I'm at callmeravenwood, or just come up to me at the convention. I'd love to talk to you. And I guess I'll close out with a closing karakia. Kia tō te manaakitanga, ki runga i tēnā o tātou, kia piki te ora, kia piki te māramatanga, kia hoki pai atu, kia hoki pai mai, tūturu whakamua kia tīna, haumi e hui e.
Awesome. Thank you so much to our panelists. Can I please get a round of applause for them and what they've shared today?